Hear the whispers from within, balance to restore, ailings to relieve. Feel the nature keeping us, nature healing us, flowers, leaves, and roots within. Hear the mind calming you, soothing you, love and kindness inside out. Let the herbs from middle world heal. Welcome wellness, welcome wellness. It's revealed herbs, middle world herbs.
Natural Well-Being series, where we talk about restoring and maintaining your health in safe and natural ways while incorporating both the physical and emotional sides of healing. We go live once a week on Fridays at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today we're going a little earlier at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And each week we talk about different aspects of health. Today's episode, we're going to focus on gut health, metabolism, and digestive issues. We'll be talking with an expert about the digestive processes, their impact on the whole body's health, and what to do if digesting foods is just not going as smoothly as it once did for you. My name is Deanne, and I am your host today. I am joined with our special guest, Dr. Jacquie Leone, a naturopathic medical doctor, board-certified holistic nutritionist, and a psychology enthusiast. So welcome, Dr. Jacquie. Always good to see you. Thank you for joining us on our show, Wonders of Digestion. And I know this topic is pretty close to your heart, so happy to have you here, and would love to hear just a little more for those who don't know about your journey, how you got into naturopathic medicine and having a passion for digestive health.
Yes. I think early on, digestive issues were my first symptom without knowing it was a symptom. I would get pretty kind of upset stomach with a lot of things I ate. I got food poisoning all the time. I had ulcers really young. I was constantly getting infections, but I had no idea at the time. You know, you're 8, 9 years old. But that being said, that's kind of like the birth of a lot of like the anxiety and the stress, and had a lot to do with my diet, right? It was like the 90s, so lots of convenience foods, packaged foods, frozen foods. And fast forward into getting, the position I did in the natural health clinic. And the first thing we talked about was digestion, and learning about probiotics, and learning about rest and digest, and learning how we literally are what we eat. And it just kind of blew my mind that super simple things like eating real food versus food that, was not recognizable in some forms. I had a nutrition teacher tell me once, if your great-great-grandmother doesn't recognize it as food, it's probably not great for our digestive tract. For instance, she might not know what a Big Mac or a Go-Gurt is, but she knows what fruits and vegetables and salad and, whole meats and eggs and things like that are. So anyhow, I applied a lot of those things and saw immense differences in a lot of other areas of my body, and really knew that early 20s is when the whole link to the digestive tract and its importance, and how, our external and internal experience is usually very strongly and directly correlated to our gut health. So yeah, when I went to med school and opened the practice, that was one of the first things I checked with every patient, just because I knew how impactful it was for me, and I wanted to really spread the wealth, pay it forward. So here we are talking about GI and gut health today, and hopefully I can pass some insights along to you and anyone else who's listening.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's just start with debunking or confirming some really common beliefs about digestive health. So I have 5 questions that are like a true or false quiz. And for anyone who's watching, we want you guys to play with us. So just type in true in the comments if you think it's true or false after I read the question. And then Dr. Jacquie will just tell us the correct answer. So here we go. Our very first question is, ulcers are caused by spicy foods or stress. True or false? All right, so type it in. Give yourself a little quick guess there, and Dr. Jacquie, go ahead and tell us the answer.
The answer is, drum roll, it's actually false. So despite a lot of beliefs and a lot of kind of buzz in different fields, people think that stress and eating certain foods cause the majority of peptic ulcers. But actually, I believe it's about 90% of cases have been linked to a bacteria called H. pylori, which is we can get it from contaminated food and water pretty easily, utensils. We can spread it with bodily fluid. So if somebody else has H. pylori and, for some reason cough, sneeze, kiss, shake hands, you can exchange and get H. pylori pretty quickly. So the vast majority of ulcers is actually caused by H. pylori and overuse of NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like aspirin and things like that. Ibuprofen as well. So what's interesting is, things like stress and spicy food can exacerbate or make worse ulcers, which is then why people seek counsel, right? Or seek physician help. Spicy food just, aggravates me and must have caused an ulcer, when that's actually the signal that there could be an ulcer and an underlying issue like overuse of NSAIDs or H. pylori infection. So that one is actually false.
Okay, yeah, you always see in the movies there, oh, my ulcer, when they're like stressed or they just ate that spicy food. So that's the reaction to it. Pause. Okay. All right, next question. It takes 7 years to digest chewing gum. True or false? Oh my gosh, this is like everyone knows that 7-year. Yeah. So I'm gonna guess false, just because it's something I feel like we all grew up knowing wrong. But what's the correct answer there?
You're absolutely correct. It's an old wives' tale. So just anything that goes through the digestive tract, even if it's something like insoluble fiber or not, the digestive tract just can't break it down like something like gum, your body's still going to excrete it. It's still going to see the light of day eventually. So the stomach can't digest it, just like it can't digest certain cellulose, which is just like a plant fiber, also in a lot of capsules, but that's what kind of bulks up the stools, insoluble fiber. So it's totally okay if you accidentally swallow your gum.
Okay, so yeah, it's not in there for 7 years, but you probably shouldn't be swallowing gum, right? Probably not your best idea.
I mean, don't make a habit out of it. Yeah, of course. But if it does happen, you will survive, I promise. And also on that note, if you swallow watermelon seeds, you will not grow watermelon in your digestive tract. I used to think that when I was younger.
Now they have shirts that are maternity shirts that when you're like really big and it says, oops, I swallowed a watermelon seed.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah, because the
looks like you have a watermelon.
Yeah, that's kind of adorable. That's genius.
I know. When you go to have a baby one day, I will send you that shirt. Okay, next question. My grandmother said, or everyone's grandmother says, or parents, don't swim for at least half an hour after eating. True or false? We need to sit it out for that half an hour.
That is medically, technically false. And I say that because there's no medical or scientific reason why you would need to sit out 30 minutes. If you swim right after eating something, most people are fine. Some people, because, the water and the pressure changes, and if they have a sensitive digestive tract or ate a really, really, really big meal, maybe the pressure changes could give them more gas or indigestion, but it's super rare. It's not going to give you a stitch or a cramp or, make you sink. So if you're at a barbecue and you're eating, definitely don't be too worried about waiting the 30 minutes before you get back in the pool.
Awesome. Isn't it funny, like all these things we grew up hearing that are just so wrong? I mean, anything, it should be like, don't have margaritas in 30 minutes before you swim. But you don't hear that one. But yeah, that's so funny. Or like if you're
it totally is.
Before you get in the water. But yeah, for kids, it's all fine. All right, so next one. Some food combinations like oatmeal and orange juice can be upsetting for digestion. True or false? Are there these combinations?
So the answer is mostly false. So the rules of food combining are based on a couple of beliefs. So people who follow food combining, they say number one, different macronutrients, carbs, protein, and fat, which are our 3 macronutrients, digest differently, which is true. Carbs are fastest, protein need a certain enzyme, fats take the longest. So what they're saying is because food digests at different times, we shouldn't combine certain foods that have, that differing timing, because it could stress out the digestive tract. They also say number 2, different foods require different enzymes to be broken down, so which can change the pH value, right? So highly acidic in the stomach, certain enzymes raise or drop the pH. So, this is still a theory. Those are the beliefs as to why people do it. Like, only eat fruit on an empty stomach. Do not eat fruit and protein, like an apple and nut butter, what a nutritionist or a doctor might recommend. But in this case, our digestive tract has evolved. It's pretty amazing. And so it always is going to, we're meant to eat combinations of food. We're meant to have complex exposure to different energy groups, which are macronutrients. So the way we're built, by and large, at least broad strokes, is that food combining doesn't really have a huge impact. Now, I will say, if you have digestive issues, if you have like maybe your gallbladder's removed, maybe you don't have enough hydrochloric acid going on or too much, genetically speaking, and those are exceptions to the rule. Maybe they find certain foods that they combine just make things worse, so maybe stay away from that. But that is really unique to the individual. So hard and fast rule, food combining isn't really a thing. But if you do have digestive issues and you notice certain food combinations aren't, don't align or make things worse, just avoid them. So.
Smart advice. All right. My last one is, if you don't have a bowel movement for 3 days, is there a problem? True or false? I'm going to say
What do you think?
false. I think false.
If you don't have a bowel movement, if you don't have a bowel movement for 3 days, there's a problem. The answer is kind of sort of true. Because think about it, if you have 3 days worth of meals, that's like anywhere from 6 to 9 meals and snacks just compounded in your colon. I mean, the colon's job at the end of the day is to remove water and then get rid of toxins. So if it's sitting in the gut, exposed and touching that gut lining for so long, there's only so much water your colon can remove from the stool. So the longer you go, the harder, the more dried out, the stool's just sitting there and the colon's just doing its job, just wringing and wringing and wringing a dry sponge until there's like nothing left. And then your body, because it's such a dehydrated stool, it's going to be painful to go. It can cause fissures, it can cause hemorrhoids, it can cause severe discomfort. So is there necessarily a medical problem if you're not going except every 3 days or twice a week or whatnot? Maybe, maybe not. I would start with the dietary stuff. Ideally, we're releasing toxins every day, at least once a day. So it's not always severe, but there could be something amiss, especially with the diet and water intake, because we really do want to see a bowel movement every day.
Okay. All right. Very good, James. Good job answering with us. All right. Now, before we dive deeper into some bigger questions about digestion and metabolism, be sure you hit the follow button so that we can always stay connected. And of course, we want to thank everyone that has followed us so far. So I want to introduce you guys to 2 amazing digestive supplements from Middle World Herbs, which we're going to be talking about more today. So we have the liver detox, and then we also have the digestive enzymes. And the first one I want to share with you is the digestive enzymes. These have bromelain and aspargillopepsin, and our digestive enzyme supplement has been formulated to cover a broad spectrum of digestive support. There are 18 different enzymes listed on the bottle, and that's more than I've found in any other digestive enzyme supplement that's on the market. So, Dr. Jacquie, which enzyme do you consider a staple for a well-formulated digestive enzyme supplement?
I like to, when I consider a supplement to support digestion, I want to look at what our body naturally makes and then the analog or the same thing, the synonym in the supplement, because I would prefer the supplement to mimic nature or our body. So, just for the sake of ease, anything that ends in ACE, A-S-E, is an enzyme. So lipid is a fat, or lipase, right, is an enzyme that breaks down fat, right? And then we have protein, or protease. So it's the enzyme that breaks down protein. So we want to directly have and or take the enzymes that naturally mimic the body so that they're bioavailable and our body recognizes them and uses them. So anything that has lipases, proteases, and then amylase is actually what breaks down carbohydrates. And then, you have things like bile, which is made in the liver and stored in the gallbladder, but in a digestive enzyme, sometimes they add ox bile or bovine bile, or just extra lipases, which again, break down fat, similar to what bile would do. So along kind of every level of what's happening when we're breaking down foods into nutrients, those little kind of machetes are the enzymes. And so whatever our body's doing, I would love to see the supplement doing the same thing. So those are kind of the highlights. Are going to be those amylase, protease, lipase, and then also if it has HCl or hydrochloric acid, bromelain, papain. Papain is the enzyme in papaya, and bromelain, which we've talked about a lot, is one of my favorites. That's the enzyme in pineapple. And again, anytime we're taking plant enzymes, that's going to be even more helpful, not just for digestion, but it's going to help with any inflammation along the way through the digestive tract. So it's going to work on the food itself, like a protease or lipase, but it's also going to help on, any inflammation or things that need to be broken down that could be damaging to the digestive tract. So the combination is pretty powerful. So I would be on the lookout for those classes of enzymes if I were looking at a supplement to help digestion.
Okay, sweet. So we have all those enzymes and more in the Middle World digestive formula. And I want you guys to just check out the capsules. So they have this like kind of whitish cream color in them. They're standard size veggie capsules, and they're really easy to swallow, just like all of our supplements are. They're made here in the USA, GMP certified and thoroughly tested by third-party labs. And every single one is tested for microbes, heavy metals, identity, physical property, and strength testing. And you don't need to take my word for it. Last week, we had a customer who reached out and requested results of those tests for his supplement. He had bought a bottle, I think, of the berberine, and he just wanted to be sure. And that's so fantastic to see that people want to make these well-informed, responsible choices when it comes to the supplements they take. So if you ever need proof of quality, potency, purity, or the origin of our supplements, never hesitate to contact us, because you deserve to know what's in the capsule and if it's safe or not. So please drop us a line with any questions. We are always here to help. And back to digestive enzymes, you're going to get 60 per bottle. They are $16.99 on Amazon. And right now, during our lives, we offer 20% off. So you can take an additional 20% off. Just click that banner. And the dose is 1 capsule 20 minutes before your meal. And that is really important. You want to recommend that 20 minutes before the meal. Timing is kind of everything. So what I will do is I take this on an as needed basis. So last night my parents came over and my siblings for my mom's birthday dinner, and they had Costco pizza. And I knew I wanted to indulge, so you better believe I took my digestive enzyme 20 minutes before, and I ate that pizza without guilt, and it was delicious. So Dr. Jacquie, how can we tell if we have deficiencies in digestive enzymes or not?
That is an awesome question. So without digestive enzymes, think about it, we don't have those cleavers breaking things up. So it means that food is going to have a hard time passing through the digestive tract. And so the harder it is for the tract to handle the food because it's not broken down, the more clunky it becomes. And when you think about kind of a factory slowing down, or if you've ever seen those cartoons where the factory kind of bloats and then kind of implodes, that's really what's happening inside when we don't have enough enzymes. We're getting bloated, we're getting, indigestion, acid reflux, where it's so uncomfortable to digest our food. Distended stomach, even where pants or anything elastic around the waist putting pressure, can be very, very painful. And last but not least, having undigested food in the stool means that it didn't really get broken down the way it needed to throughout the tract. And so the number one cause of that is usually low digestive enzymes. So if you have any of those issues, you might want to consider digestive enzymes to help you out.
Okay, cool. And would it be safe if you wanted to take a larger dose of it? Since we can't really know how much we need at any given time, is it easy to overdose on them?
So everybody's going to be different, size, stature, the size of the meal being eaten. Are we having like a slice of pizza, or are we having half of a pizza? Are we, like it's all relative to the environment and what we're doing, but taking too many digestive enzymes can actually damage the intestines, making it too enzyme rich, because if there's not food or inflammation for the enzymes to break up, now they're going to start breaking up whatever is in, its vicinity, because that's just the nature of an enzyme. So if it doesn't have a job to do, it's going to find a job to do. And so if you take too many, it can actually degrade the digestive tract. So you really want to find what's called the therapeutic dosing, or that sweet spot. Not enough and you won't notice any effect, and you'll still have your digestive problems. And then too much, now we're starting to cause damage. So there is that sweet spot. And I would consider your size, the size of the meal, and 1 to 2 capsules, like you said, 20 minutes before a meal should be able to prime and get digestive juices kind of ready to receive the food. So I wouldn't do too much more now than the 2 capsules. But again, disclaimer, I don't know everybody's medical history. This isn't treatment or patient care or anything. It's just kind of based on research and what research has shown. That's more or less the therapeutic window. But I would definitely speak to your physician if you have a history of gastrointestinal disorder, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, peptic ulcers, duodenal ulcers, all that good stuff. Definitely seek support. But I think that at the end of the day, really utilizing food in combination with supplements to make sure that we get enzymes, because food have natural enzymes as well. Our digestive tract doesn't have to make all of its own. Like I said before, pineapples and papaya right away. But believe it or not, things like honey, bananas, avocados, kimchi, ginger, these all have natural enzymes that are going to help the digestive process as well.
Okay. So what would happen if we started relying on it for all of our meals? We took it over a long period of time. Would we become dependent and then not digest our food as well without it?
That's a really good question. I get asked this all the time. So there's a little bit of concern that the body can become dependent on digestive enzyme supplements, but there's no solid base of research that backs that up necessarily. So the only scenario where this could maybe happen would be in cases where the body doesn't produce a specific enzyme and the supplement is required for digestion. Like if you just do not make a certain enzyme because you have damage to your pancreas, let's say, or it's a genetic issue, or you just, again, don't have a gallbladder, or you have liver issues, so bile is a problem. If you need to take ox bile, or if you need to take one of those enzymes to help pick up that slack, that is okay chronically long term, right? You can't really overdo it because your body's not naturally making it. So I would just for me personally, because I take digestive enzymes, I do it when I know I'm going to eat something my body isn't fully aligned with, like gluten. I don't have a gluten allergy, but I do notice I get a little kind of fatiguey the next day. My get up and go kind of got up and went for 24 hours. So I'll take enzymes to help with that, right? Or if I know I'm having a celebration meal or eat more than normal, that might cause gas or bloating. Lots of goitrogens like broccoli and cauliflower, I'll take enzymes to help with that versus taking enzymes every day at every meal, because I do want to give my digestive tract a chance to do its own thing with what and how it is built naturally, but just give it that little edge, that extra support when it's needed. So everybody's different, age, previous medical conditions, just the general health of your digestive tract, how long you've had symptoms. So it's all kind of relative. But in terms of science and research, there's really no foundation that we can become, overly dependent on digestive enzymes.
Okay, cool. So what about metabolism? Would these speed up our metabolism, and can they help with weight loss?
Such a good question. So the enzymes are going to help improve digestion overall. And so the health of your gut will just be working more efficiently. So it's not a direct cause and effect, right? It's not like you take the enzymes, you lose weight. We're skipping 4 or 5 steps in between. So the enzymes will create better digestion, will increase nutrients in the body for mitochondria and all the other tissues in the body to make energy, which will maybe help, sleep, help pain, make us more active, or, change kind of how we function because our GI tract is working better, because we have what we need to support it. So it's kind of like a correlative, like there's a correlation for some people, taking digestive enzymes, helping with metabolism and utilizing nutrients more efficiently. But it's not a hard and fast rule, and there's no guarantee, and it all depends on the biodiversity of the person.
Okay, very good. All right, well, a quick reminder to everyone who's watching, if you guys have questions about digestion, please put them in the chat. We have Dr. Jacquie, and she is a naturopathic medical doctor, board certified holistic nutritionist, and digestion and metabolic processes are her special interests. So we're also here for you, so please ask away. And now we're going to move on to our next formula, which is going to be our liver detox. So this supplement, let me show you guys what this one looks like. Pretty similar. It's just got a little more of like that tan coloring in there. And you're going to get 60 veggie capsules with this one. Again, they're really easy to swallow. And the recommended dose on this one is 3 capsules daily. So this formula has milk thistle, artichoke leaf, dandelion leaf, and solar plast, which is an antioxidant-rich spinach leaf extract. And it also has a blend of digestive enzymes to help the liver break down fats. So it is $20.99 on Amazon, and you get to take that additional 20% off during this live. So definitely a good deal to get these supplements during the live. But let's learn more about them. So Dr. Jacquie, what are the top 3 most amazing facts about our liver that we should all know?
I think the first thing that I always find so fascinating about it, I could nerd out all day, is how many jobs it does. I feel like I was raised by a single mom after a certain age, and I think of the liver like a single mom. It's just all by itself, handling everything, not sleeping, like putting itself last. It's just so focused on everything else, right? It's so complicated. It's breaking things down, it's building things up, it's filtering stuff out, it's adding things to. I mean, it produces energy, proteins, stores glucose, processes drugs, medications, supplements, filters out sex hormones and other hormones and breaks them down. The liver is just pretty amazing in how many things it does. I can't even believe how multifaceted it is. And the second thing, when I think about how vast that factory really is, I'm kind of impressed that it's like the size of like a 3-pound ball, if you will, almost like a small football, and it sits right under our ribs, just there all the time, hanging out, doing its job, no questions asked. So if you go right under your right ribs, if you kind of find where they stick out and curl your fingers in, you are underneath those muscles and skin, you're touching your liver border. So you should, right around here. So that soft, squishy, if you ever go to the doctor and you're complaining of digestive stuff and they're like feeling around in there and it's a little uncomfortable, they're checking to see if the liver's inflamed, swollen, or enlarged. So I just think the size at 3 pounds, and it's just hanging out doing its thing all day, every day. And then the third thing is it's the only organ that can regenerate, right? So we can take a biopsy, it can be damaged, and actually regrow itself. So I've said this before, but it's like the starfish of the body. You cut off a limb in the starfish, it's going to grow back pretty quickly. It's the same thing with the liver, which I think, given how many jobs it does, the fact that it can regenerate as well is kind of like a superpower. So, the size and location, believe it or not, all the cells, when you look at the population of the cells, if you were to spread them out like a piece of paper, it'd actually be right underneath the size of the skin. It's the second biggest organ next to the skin. 3 pounds sitting there doing its thing. So anyway, I think that those are 3 pretty amazing things that the liver is doing for us at all times. And it's always working to keep us vital. It's always working to keep balance. And I really love that natural vitality of the liver, just wanting us to be well. It's our biggest advocate because it does the most work, in terms of how multifaceted it is.
That's great. It's our single mom. I love that. Okay, so what are some of the warnings? How would you know if you have like a slow functioning or a struggling liver? And is weight gain one of them? Like, how do you know?
Weight gain can definitely be one of them, but I would look more to other things. So If the sclera or the white part of your eye tends to be a little yellowish, or maybe you get like a yellowishness to your skin, that's known as jaundice, and that means your liver is struggling. If you constantly get a lot of abdominal pain and swelling, especially after high fat foods or alcohol consumption, both of which the liver is very highly involved in, that could be a sign. If you get what's called edema, which is swelling in the legs, in the ankles, could be liver stuff, could be heart stuff. Dry, itchy skin, really dark urine or super pale stool, exhaustion, fatigue, lethargy. These are all signs that the liver is definitely having problems. So, when our liver is damaged, it's going to produce a lot less proteins necessary for things like blood clotting as well. So if you bruise easily, or if you cut yourself and you're just not clotting and making that scab, you're bleeding, and you notice it's taking substantially longer than normal for the blood to stop, that could also be a pretty big sign that the liver is struggling.
Okay, interesting. So which ones of our daily habits are taking the biggest toll on our liver?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of angle we're taking with the liver, but I think one of the biggest things that I've seen get in the way of liver function are trans fats. So trans fats are derived from animals, beef, poultry, eggs, dairy products. They're also created by like hydrogenated oils and things like that. So margarines, fake fats, those are the types of oils that can solidify and become solid. Partially hydrogenated fats. If you're seeing that on the label, then that's considered a trans fat. So they're found in fast foods, processed foods. Anyways, your liver can't safely tolerate trans fat. So it's causing an increase in blood sugar and fat deposits in the liver when we're eating trans fat. So over time, if we're eating trans fat regularly, it's going to cause too much fat in the liver cells. And then the liver cells begin to swell and liver tissue hardens. It can become scarred, actually. So this leads to liver cell death, which is known as cirrhosis of the liver. People can get cirrhosis of the liver. We associate it a lot to alcohol consumption, but it's actually closely related to trans fat consumption as well. So trans fat, eating it definitely attributes to diseases like diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver, dementia. Trans fats also implant onto the phospholipid bilayer of a cell, and that sounds super scientific and maybe like yawn, but basically every cell on the outside has a little bit of fat. Because kind of think about fat, it floats on water, right? And it's super malleable and fluid, and it's like, coats things and things. So it's on the outside of every cell because it makes the cell kind of buoyant. It makes the outside, stuff can get in, stuff can get out, stuff can move back and forth. And so what trans fats do is they insert themselves in the phospholipid bilayer. And think about it. Margarine, it should be a liquid, but it is solid at room temperature. So if we're taking in trans fats and we need kind of that liquid malleability of the phospholipid bilayer of a cell to function well, the trans fats are like mortar. They're like cement. Our body thinks they're fat. So it's like, oh, let's make some bilayer. Come on, guys, ingredients. And so it tries to, but it ends up being like spackle and it hardens. And then the cell can't get good stuff in and it can't get bad stuff out and it ends up dying. So that's what's happening to the liver cell when we're eating trans fat. We're just slowly but surely killing the liver cells. The second thing is obviously going to be, alcohol and drugs, because everything has to be broken down by the liver. So if we're constantly ingesting alcohol and drugs, then the liver diverts its energy to convert alcohol into a less toxic substance, or drugs into a less toxic substance, because that's its job. But then it leaves the liver really vulnerable to not doing other things well, like critical functions, like making proteins, making healthy cholesterols, protective cholesterols. It can't do its job when it's busy breaking down toxic things because it's trying to protect us all the time. And probably the third thing is eating lots of sugar. A lot of people don't really associate the liver to sugar, which I totally get. You know, they associate the liver, or excuse me, sugar to diabetes, or maybe the pancreas, if you know how diabetes works. But actually, sugar directly damages the liver. It's as toxic as alcohol to the liver, and it's more addictive than cocaine to the brain. So, in the forms of things like fructose, which is like white table sugar, high fructose corn syrup, which is in a lot of candies and sweet things, artificial sweeteners, which we've talked about before, just not tolerated well by the liver. Those sugars are converted into fat almost immediately and can cause liver disease over time. So when we're eating more natural sugars from fruits and veggies, even natural cane sugar, maple syrup, honey, the liver naturally is designed to digest these okay and give us the right kind of energy when we need it, and then store it for later and make it easily accessible. So those are probably the three things that I think. The alcohol drugs one, a lot of people know, but a lot of people are super surprised that there's a correlation between trans fats and then the sugar, you know, that just how damaging those are to the liver. So if you can just stop one of those things or start limiting them today, ideally all three eventually, but you should notice a substantial improvement in digestion and metabolism if you can address one or all of those things.
Okay, yeah, that's really good information about the liver, and a good challenge to eliminate all three if possible. So as you were talking, I was popping my liver detox. I took my 3 capsules.
Nice.
So yeah, so if you guys are sold at home too, drop it in your cart. You're getting 20% off. So you guys might also be wondering what this little charm is that's attached to all the bottles, and that's called the Whisper. And these have a positive thought or affirmation and inspiration on them. And every single time you buy a supplement, you get a different whisper on your bottle. So this one says, "Today is a good day for a good day." And I just think the whispers are really, really cool. And there's like a unique backstory about them too. So the founder was on a trip to Bergama, Turkey, and she was at the Asclepian temple ruins. And there's like this dark tunnel. And back in like the 8th century of BC, like back then, the healers would have the patients walk slowly through the tunnel, and they would whisper through those cracks of light positive affirmations and mantras and healing messages to the patients. And that was part of like a physical and emotional healing. So they have been doing that for years. And the founder realized, you know, in the supplement space, there's so much focus on the physical, but there's really not a lot of focus on the emotional side of healing. So that's why she came up with this idea to put the Whisper on every single one. And it's so true that what you think, your mind is so powerful, like feelings of worry, anger, stress, that can trigger physical problems, and including problems with our digestive health. So what kind of metabolic disorders do you, Dr. Jacquie, most commonly see in patients who are also struggling with their emotions?
I personally, it really does depend on the emotion that they're struggling with, but I have seen a lot of associations to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is kind of the precursor to diabetes and can be kind of associated to a few different things happening. Women who have polycystic ovarian syndrome, for instance, get insulin resistance and can develop diabetes. Metabolic syndrome, which is its own syndrome, has insulin resistance. So the difference between, just kind of a caveat for anybody suffering syndrome, disease, illness, like what the heck, why the different words? So a disease, if you have blank disease, it means that we can actually see cellular changes happening, and we know what's causing it, whether it's environmental or genetic or a combination, right? When we think of syndrome, polycystic ovarian syndrome, or metabolic syndrome, what we mean is we don't know an exact mechanism of action, what's causing it, but we see the same handful of symptoms time and time again. And so they kind of began to get grouped together and are known as a syndrome, right? Irritable bowel syndrome, right? Not Crohn's disease, not ulcerative colitis, not diverticulitis, but irritable bowel syndrome. A lot of symptoms that go together, even though we can't pinpoint the cause. So metabolic syndrome is probably one of the most common and most underdiagnosed. But I'll get back to that in a second. Outside of that, again, the insulin resistance, diabetes, and then thyroid stuff. So the thyroid is the home of metabolism. And when it's not working fast enough, we get what's called hypothyroid, slow, low, depressed, we can't lose weight, lethargy, constipation. Just think of everything slows down, depression even. And then on the flip side of that, we can have what's called hyperthyroid, hyper, too much. So diarrhea, anxiety, insomnia, I'm losing weight and not trying, and this is not fun anymore. And so, one of those two extremes can end up happening. Those are associated to metabolic disorders or disorders that can affect metabolism. Because again, the thyroid is the house of metabolism. So it's directly affected when we have thyroid disease. Metabolic syndrome is when metabolism is off, our cortisol or our stress hormone is off. Maybe we are exhausted in the morning and just wired at night, which is inverted from what we should be. We should be ready to start the day in the morning and naturally sleepy at night. So when we have that shift in our cortisol curve, when we have weight gain, when we have insulin resistance or prediabetes, like our labs are our blood sugar is kind of starting to go high. When we have hyperlipidemia or high cholesterol, right? But everything's kind of barely there, but it's 5 or 6 things barely problematic. That collection of symptoms is known as metabolic syndrome. And so some people think it's just this or just that, when it's really part of a bigger picture. So that's what I tend to see most often is metabolic syndrome, followed by, the diabetes stuff and then the thyroid stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, that is such good, helpful, and interesting information. And if you're finding this at home also interesting, please go ahead and hit the follow button. Plus, you can follow at Middle World Herbs. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. And there is a ton of helpful information about medicinal plants, emotional healing, and natural wellness. And lastly, I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about some of the herbal superheroes with amazing properties for liver and digestive health. And be sure we have included them all in the Middle World Liver Detox formula. So firstly, let's talk about dandelion. Dr. Jacquie, why is there so much buzz around dandelions lately?
Dandelion, the underestimated, the weed of the garden. I think it's probably one of the most underestimated plants out there. It occurs super, densely throughout a lot of different populations, but it can be kind of considered, a weed or a nuisance, but it's actually pretty powerful. And I think the reason why there's so much buzz around it is because it does so many things. So usually with herbs, there's a single part that has the magic ingredients, like the elderberry, just the berry. Curcumin or turmeric is like just the root or rhizome, none of the aerial parts that kind of grow up and out, right? And so it's really cool when an herb has magical powers in all its parts. And so dandelion's cool because not only do the leaves or the part that sticks out of the ground have really cool effects, but the roots also have a really cool medicinal effect. So the leaves are what are called a potassium-sparing diuretic. Well, what the heck does that mean? Well, diuretics help you urinate. So if you're retaining water because you have edema, because you've eaten too much salt, because you have heart disease issues or hypertension maybe. Taraxacum, which is the Latin name for dandelion and how I know it, medically, but the leaf can help you, get rid of that fluid. So most diuretics or water pills, as some people might know them, when you urinate a high amount, you're getting rid of a lot of potassium naturally if you're taking the drug version, the synthetic version. It's just the way that the drug works. But the cool part about dandelion, which I just think is nature doing its thing, is it's like, you know what, the body needs potassium, so we're not going to take that with us. We're just going to get rid of the water and all the other stuff that goes with it, but we're going to leave the potassium behind. So you don't get potassium deficiency when you're taking dandelion leaf as a diuretic to help with things like edema and heart stuff and weight stuff, right? Like you would with a normal water pill or a diuretic that you might be taking with your heart medication, let's say. So that's the leaf part. Now, when we look at the root, the under the ground system, the root is really powerful because it is a liver detoxifier. So when we're looking at the root, it is